right. Next up, I'd like to bring out our local historian. You may know him, Eric Lynxwiler, to tell us a little bit about the original Berry Tales attraction. Eric? Hey, welcome.
Howdy, guys.
Long time no see.
I see some familiar faces out there. My gosh, it's good to see people again. Oh, nice to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So tell us a little bit about the original Berry Tales attraction.
Well, I think that you need to know a little bit about where this all came from before we talk about Berry Tales. It still confuses me how people come to Knott's Berry Farm and they don't realize that all of this in 1920, 100 years ago, all of this was a farm. It was Walter Knott's family farm, and on this farm, it's where he invented, or basically propagated, the boysenberry. That was about 1934, and then in 1934, his wife Cordelia also gave us a fried chicken dinner. People came by the dozens, the hundreds, the thousands, and by 1941, he needed to entertain all those people, so he gave us a ghost town. He actually did us a favor in saving historic buildings and putting them in ghost town, but ghost town was a little bit of a mix. It was the real American history, and it was mixed in with all of the tall tales and legends of the West. By 1952, he gave us a giant train. He wound up buying a historic railroad from the Denver and Rio Grande. That Denver and Rio Grande train is still sitting out there. It runs on a little mile track, and guess what? That actually attracted the attention of a guy down the street.
Oh, who could that be?
Who could that be? Some animator guy wound up coming out to Knott's Berry Farm in 1952, walked down Main Street in Ghost Town, wound up riding the train over and over again, and a few years later built his own park. But it's Knott's Berry Farm that wound up breaking the mold over and over again with attractions like the Calico Mine Ride. And Bud Hurlbut also later gave us the Timber Mountain Log Ride about 1969. It was a few years later, as the park continued to grow and expand, that Marion Knott, Walter Knott's youngest daughter, wound up looking over in that direction, and she saw a landscape that at the time was themed to the gypsy camp. She wanted to change that around and wound up giving us a new landscape, something that was more themed to the Roaring Twenties area. That is when we finally got a hold of Rolly Crump, and Rolly started work on the designs for Knott's Berry Tales. Some of those designs looked like, these are a few of Rolly Crump's original designs as he was theming this attraction. Now, Marion Knott couldn't make up her mind for that second floor dark ride. Was it going to be gypsy themed? It was even going to have a marionette theme. It changed over the months, and it wound up turning into a bear family as all of these gypsies were anthropomorphized into the berry family. What used to be people turned into rabbits and skunks and frogs. Let's look at that next slide, because in it we see the new landscape of the Roaring Twenties, including the Charleston Fountain, which still sits over to my left. Now, this Roaring Twenties landscape was decked out with beautiful neon, and on top of that giant building where Rolly Crump built his main attraction was a huge neon sign, a big beacon that actually dragged people, like visually got them to walk from Calico Square all the way over and up a flight of stairs in order to ride his Knott's Berry Tales. I have to see a show of hands. I know you all have a fork in your hands, but did you ride the original? Where are you? These are my people. These are my children of the 70s. That would be me too. Thank you. Yes, I rode that original. It totally affected me. And if you saw the inside, which is the next slide, you stepped into this amazing world of sight and sound and smell. When you first walked inside, a few things happened. You hit that red car, you went over a little hump, and you were in the Berry family canning cave. The canning cave had a scent. It was boysenberry scented. Now, Rolly Crump actually looked towards Bud Hurlbut's designs for the Timber Mountain Log Ride, because the Timber Mountain Log Ride had the smell of evergreen inside. It was pine scented. He borrowed from that in order to scent his attraction, and it smelled like boysenberries throughout. He also did something amazing inside this attraction because he began with a little trick that he was not allowed to do at his previous employers. At his previous employers, they said, no, it's a dark ride, you can only use black light, you can't use incandescent. He mixed it up here. And he started off his attraction in the canyon cave, and he used incandescent lighting. It was good to train the eye to get used to this landscape, but it also made the weird parts weirder when you finally hit that black light. The next slide will actually show you some of those interiors. You start into the blacklight world of the frog forest. It was filled with sound. The sounds of frogs chirping and clicking, plus they had that theme song going. Every different room had different lyrics for that theme song. And the theme song was completely different instrumentally from room to room to room. As soon as you got into the gypsy camp, more blacklight weirdness. But the other thing that was going on is you had an entire depth of field. So as you were moving in your little red car vehicle, you were passing by things that would appear and then disappear as you went past trees and rocks and over past a gypsy cart. You could see inside of a tent and then pass it and see the outside of the tent. It was a three-dimensional built landscape. And in the next slide, you can see some of the weirdness of these weird woods. There was so much going on in there. And of course, the thing that you need to know and take home from this, that was when Rolly Crump designed this with his team at Design 27, everything was made by hand. It was the craft of all of these skilled people who put their fingerprints and paintbrushes to work in order to sew costumes, in order to hand cut leaves for all of these trees, in order to hand paint all of those signs, which were, by the way, painted not only for incandescent, but also for blacklight. So they knew what they were doing. It was amazing. And if any of these little vignettes look familiar, you're a child of the 70s. We all rode that thing together. But you might pay attention to these images because you might just see them in the redesigned Berry Tales Return to the Fair. This is some of the stuff that inspired the design of the ride, and thanks to Rolly Crump, it lives on today. It didn't last for long. It said goodbye in 1986. It became a new attraction, Kingdom of the Dinosaurs. So another generation of people, yes, like my baby brother, Kingdom of the Dinosaurs was his ride. Berry Tales was my ride. I've never let go of it because it affected me that much. By the way, when Kingdom of the Dinosaurs did finally open, side note, it still smelled like boysenberries. Just had to put that out there.
Thank you so much, Eric. It's so great to hear the past, and learn a little bit about what used to be in that building, and then hopefully everybody will appreciate tonight when they get to see Berry Tales Return to the Fair and make those comparisons and see the link between the past and the present. So thanks for coming out tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks, you guys. You're going to love it.